United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, Derek.
Here.
Julie is out of town, Chad is not here, Lee.
Here.
Melissa.
Here.
Mike's here, Spencer.
Yeah.
Craig is out of town, Nate. Here. John. Here. Gretchen.
Here.
And I told Sammy she'd have to come in the summer months, so. Okay. Sounds good. Adoption of the agenda? Derek moves it.
A second.
Melissa seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Warrior Pride, this would be a, accepting a monetary donation from the American Legion Post 191 for the Warrior Fishing Club. Spencer moves it. Lee seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. That one carries 5-0. No board showcase tonight, no student school board report, no public comment. Consent agenda minus the local literacy plan that does not have to be approved by the board. Is there any questions or discussions on the consent agenda?
I got one. To the Schmitz, Craig's probably want to answer it, but I was looking at their thing, like for kids that ain't in our district, it's like $1 a mile. Why, I mean, if they're like a mile or two out of our district, why am I going to get them? It's not like it's gonna break the bank.
We actually don't, that's just a journal entry, maybe they don't actually charge us extra.
They don't?
They go a little bit out of the way, but I just asked for some amounts to the transportation report,
Okay.
so, and that's the language has been in that contract, so.
So potentially we could get kids that ain't like are just outside our district
They have to,
boundary?
they have to come to board. The only time they do it is if it's really close. Or something. Otherwise, they're to the board. Or Boca. Down in there.
Well, I know there's one up on top of 18, they're like, turnaround's like 1.5 miles from there, and they pick up, they gotta drive 5 miles to Holga, where they can pick them up like Peepers up on top, which is like 1.5 miles, 2 miles away.
And are you gonna pick up where they come?
They aren't, they gotta drive their kids to Holga.
Yeah.
Younger kids, which they would be nice, like as a parent standpoint, if my kid was getting dropped off at home, it's just sitting in Holga, waiting for mom and dad to get there if they're on the
Yeah,
way.
she's done the Boca thing just because that's a convenient spot,
Yeah.
so she doesn't have to.
Okay. That was one of that.
Good. Anybody else? All right. In that case, I'll make the motion. Lee seconds it. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. All right, so this would be action item for the Brent products. Rachel, I talked to Rachel this afternoon and she said she crunched the numbers and she knows what we use and all that stuff. And she says she recommends sticking with Pan of Gold over the Bimbo bakeries. Everybody good with that?
That's good.
Sticking with
They
the,
use both.
what's that?
They use both.
I don't know if she uses one or the other, so I understand. And she says the stuff that she uses the most of is cheaper than Pan of Gold. It would save, what she say, it saves like $46 a week if we go with Pan of Gold.
Do that. I'll make a motion.
Okay, Derek makes the motion,
A second.
Melissa seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Dairy products, there's only one there. I'll make a motion.
Second.
Derek seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. And then the gasoline fuel
I'll make
bids.
the motion.
Derek makes it.
I'll second.
Spencer seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. That one carries 5-0. And then the last action item is the adopt a budget for the 2025-2026 school year. Were you gonna talk later about stuff,
I
Bart?
can do it right now.
Well,
Whatever you prefer.
I'm just sorry, question memory, this is worst case scenario. This is like our,
This is what we went over in the finance.
yeah, so you had a
This is our budget for 25.
Well, Barb can speak on that more at the administrative report, if that's all right, Barb, that work? Okay, okay, Lee makes it, all seconded, all in favor say aye. All opposed say no, motion carries 5-0. Administrative reports, Mr. Bowler.
Just a couple of things from the middle school, high school. I'm very happy to say, as we sit here right now, we are fully staffed as far as certified teachers at the middle school, high school. Nicole, who you guys just approved, she's actually originally from Winona, but a cold called her out of, she lives in California right now. So she's gonna be moving back with her husband, which they were planning on doing anyway, but very excited. So barring no unforeseen circumstances, which is bound to happen, don't get me wrong, we are fully staffed for supervised staff.
Teacher included in that then?
What's that?
It's a math teacher.
She's a math teacher,
She
yep.
was math. Okay, good.
So 5 through 12.
5 through 12, so that's actually gives us some flexibility in there that we currently don't have as well. So very lucky to have found her. We had summer school the last 2 weeks, which ended last week, or technically last night, but so we had 12 classes that were recovered for our 2 weeks of summer school this year. So obviously, it's good that kids take advantage of that. It gives them more opportunities throughout the school year with electives that they can take. Other than that, it's just a lot of summer projects right now, working with the custodians, digging through all the piles of stuff that have piled up throughout the school year. So I would say that just, like I said, a lot of housekeeping items. One of the things that we said that we were going to talk about tonight was the surveys for our staff. I don't know, is now a good time for me to talk a little bit about them?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
That was a new business item.
Oh, is that a new business?
You guys want to do it?
Nope.
then, or-
we can wait. So, no, I guess that's what I have going right now.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Bowler.
Yep.
Mr. Wallstrom?
Yeah, you want to pull up the, I'm ready. Okay, so one time, earlier in the year, in the winter, I shared out some data from our iReady assessment. I should have done it right away in the fall too, but I hadn't even thought about it at that point, but we do it 3 times a year, fall, winter, spring. And it's just another measure that we use to see how much our kids are learning, how on track they are, and it breaks it down almost to the infinite level. So what you see here, each dot represents a grade level. You could have them labeled to show each grade level, and then you can break it down by teacher by grade level, and like I said, all the way down to the individual kid. Every kid in the whole school. So for tonight's purpose, I'm just going to share with you and kind of reshare with you what the data looks like. There's 2 different assessments, reading and math. And this graph is a quadrant, if you remember this winter when I showed it a little bit. So basically, the bottom left would mean low performance, low growth. Bottom right is high performance. So kids that are know a lot, but they're not growing very much. The top left quadrant is low performance, high growth. So you might have students that don't know much, but they have learned a lot throughout the school year. And then lastly, this is the target quadrant to be in, the high performance, high growth. So basically what this illustrates is students are performing very well, and they're also growing a lot relative to people that are in the same performance level as them. So basically how this works is the growth component, depending on where each individual kid is at, if their performance is really, really high, we have nationally normed data that shows you how much those kids are expected to grow throughout an entire school year. If they did exactly what was expected, each individual kid, of course this is an average by grade level, they'd be right there. Or a kid who may have a lot of prior knowledge and come into the school year knowing more than your average student, but then grows the normal amount or the average amount, they'd be on this line. So the top right corner is always the goal to be there, and super proud to show that every grade level made it. This one was above the line just barely, but that's really good data. We met with the iReady Curriculum Associates rep, and he echoed that he works with a lot of districts, and that the data looks really, really good. This is K through 5 data. So, and then if you scroll down a little bit, Nathan.
And when we met with the rep, we are looking at expanding through 8th grade with iReady. So that was why we met with them a week and a half ago.
So yeah, this is math, same thing. You see a lot more clustered here, one grade level, above and beyond there with the growth. But once again, I really like iReady data for school-wide because it gives you that target, that top right quadrant to be in there is awesome because it not just measures what do students know, it's how much are they growing relative to where they're at. So the other very useful part of this is, with something like MCA data, you don't know the results until it's too late to really do anything. I will say it's never too late. You're always thinking, the next school year, stuff like that. But you get these measures throughout the year, not even just these big assessments in the fall, winter, spring, but as you're going throughout the school year, you get measures of where kids are at. It's a little more useful in that way. The other part that's cool about it is being nationally normed, means it goes beyond state lines for comparing students and where they're at. The MCA is obviously very, very important to us as a Minnesota school, but a simple question would help us rethink, who's to say the MCA is a better test than other state tests, and that's why national data is cool to look at because it kind of takes that component out of it. You're really looking at your students compared to other students around the country. So, yeah, any questions about
Can you go up to the top one again? Oh, I missed that dot way up there.
Yeah.
I was like, why is there 5 on that one? So what, that represents a grade?
It represents a grade, and I have in my possession every teacher by name, so you can really see, each individual teacher, and then, like I said, even the individual. But I chose for the board meeting to keep names off of it. It's hard for me not, right? This person should be very proud of where they're at, but just to keep the team a team and not pick out individuals.
That's interesting. So it's nationally normed. So you could put, let's just say that's 2nd grade for the sake of argument. Could you put a dot where the national norm is?
So the national norm for the.
I'm not saying off the
average-
top of your head, I'm just saying, does iReady give you the ability to say, our 2nd graders are doing this, the national norm is this?
Yeah, the average should be right in the middle.
That's the average?
It should be. I rely pretty heavily on our data coordinators. Mr. Haybeisen helps me fully understand this so that I can present it. I would want to run it by him being kind of the data guru, but if I understand it correctly, right smack dab in the middle is average performance and then average growth.
Okay.
So
the reason I ask is that if that's really good stuff, and if you could make it so you could show a trend and make it comparable to the national norm or other districts or whatever, then you could say you're going out, asking the public for, levy the public for money or whatever. You can say, well, this is the kind of information that's good to present and say, this is how we're doing. Okay, we're not in the lower left corner. And people might be more likely to be like, oh.
well, and that's the exact reason why I'm sharing it right now. So
Right, but I mean,
to more people.
Right, oh, I'm saying to make it really useful though, if you could, if you could get it to somehow, ask Haybison if he could get it to show a trend, year over year trend, A, and B, make it have comps to the national norm or some other thing. Trends and comps is what, that's how you make data really useful. That looks great, but to make it really operationally relevant, it has to show trends and comps.
Yeah, and one thing we do look at as far as the trend goes is, you know, throughout the school year, there's different benchmarks for fall, winter, spring, because as the school year goes on, kids know more because they're learning more. And so, you know, we do that just within our district. So what I'm getting at is I do think that would be very possible. In fact, iReady probably has a way to just get to somewhere and it shows the line. It might make it for us. But the other thing I mentioned in the winter, iReady is, this school year was year number 1 as districts opted in or out to participate in a study trying to figure out how is this as an MCA predictor. I'm always careful to make MCA like the only thing we're going towards, but it is important because it's what people look at most often. Anyway, using this as a predictor. So in the fall, if you see a deficiency in certain areas of math, that being an indicator for how kids are going to perform on the MCA. That way, as a teacher, you know, we got to bump this up a little bit. We got to put a little more time and effort into this topic because we're, you know, probably going to fall a little short here in the MCAs if we don't. So yeah, I'm excited. I don't know if that'll be coming out next year or when they'll kind of finalize that. We do use iReady math curriculum. So what we're seeing here is called the diagnostic. It's the assessment component. We do it for math and reading. We use their math curriculum, which is the actual workbooks that students write in, the teacher guided lessons, all of that. For reading, we don't use iReady, their curriculum. Certainly always one thing we talked with the rep about was, you know, looking at their reading curriculum a little bit, but as of now, we're not highly motivated to change it because what we're doing right now is working pretty darn good. At least at the elementary level, we're seeing a lot of success with it. So, yeah. Other questions about nationally normed assessments, iReady itself? I had some notes typed up and I never looked at it. Yeah, data-informed decision-making. Yeah, I had highlighted here, it shows growth, not just benchmarks. You know, the MCAs show whether you met standard or didn't. That's about the most you get out of it. You know, Nathan does a really good job for the whole district. Breaking that data out into the different strains and see, but I don't want to say it's too late by then. This is great because it's all year long, so it's just much more useful.
The benchmark reports come out in September. That's when they become public, just like when MCA results become public. And then you can break it down. And I've done this since I came here. I'll break it down. So in 3rd grade, what standards did we do, you know, really well in, and what standards did we not do as well in, so that we can look at our curriculum and saying, are we meeting the standard? You know, where do we need to realign some things? So it'll do that all the way, you know, 3rd grade through 11th grade. Obviously, not all high school grades take it, but it's a little bit harder in high school because they're taught over multiple years. But it's pretty good to show, like, and the state even breaks it down as far as to say, this standard should be average, this standard should be easier than average, this is a more complex topic, so it's harder than average. And so we can kind of look at, you know, the things that we're expected to do well in, we want to make sure we're doing well in, or we're missing some of our, you know, some of the easier things according to the state.
So I'm curious about your question too, Mike. where the average would be, because sometimes, like we use Fast Bridge assessment for our screener tool for looking at kids who might need intervention and stuff like that. The average, they use like the 40th percentile, you'd think it would be 50. So I don't say that with, super high confidence that the middle is average. Common sense would make me think it is, but that's not always how it works. So I'm gonna reach out to Jake and see. He'll be able to give me a quick answer, probably one text. So I'm curious myself. Anything else? Oh, I should add this. At the elementary level, kindergarten, first and second grade, we don't have MCA data, so this is super useful for us because we don't even have that option. We targeted this year as a school our site goal, which basically means our school site. We had a goal as an entire staff. We based it off iReady data, and it was a growth goal. So basically, we were hoping to reach a certain number school-wide K through 5 of growth, not just the performance. And we did end up meeting it, which is great, but just another motivating, useful way to make sure we're always trying to get better.
Well, thank you, John. Good
Yep.
stuff. Miss Julie.
Yes. I am really just in the midst of all my summer stuff. We got summer SAG, daycare, driver's ed, keeping track of all school vehicles and who's got what when. So, yeah, it's been busy, but it's been good. Reaching out to instructors for fall classes already, trying to get some new stuff in the works to offer. And 2 weeks ago, I wrapped up all of the testing, like post-test editing I had to do. And the final scores do come out on June 27th, but that's just for like school staff. They become public in August, and that's when we'd be able to like discuss them with the group. So, yeah, that's all I got right now.
Sounds good. Any questions for Gretchen? All right. Mr. Ergy's jigging walleyes right now. So is Chad, by the way. Just remember, he's up north fishing in Canada too. So, all right. Claire.
So we can start with the budget. We met as a finance committee last week to go over things. And as always, we budget very conservatively, but looking at the forecast of Minnesota's, excuse me, budget forecast, excuse me, I didn't want to paint a pretty picture because the next few years aren't going to look very good. Actually, a week ago today, they went into special session and they did take some funding away, reducing the special ed transportation down to 95%. So that's a bit concerning. They reduced the library aid down, and they're even talking about doing more for special ed, removing $250 million in aid, but they're putting a committee together to figure out how they're going to cut that in the budget in the next couple of years. So I reached out to HFED to see what can we do to advocate to be in this ribbon committee or advocate for special ed funding. And then you also never got the Title I funding back that I was hoping that we would have after we got to 7% poverty and 5% the year before. And I think I sent an email out saying how the state has to work with the federal government because of how the calculation is made. Because we were lower last year, we're gonna be lower this year, and I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense when we're back to what we were 2 years ago. So a lot of things still in the works. So hoping to project the worst case scenario, hoping for the best, planning for the worst. That's kind of where we're at. I think you guys get the MREA updates for the legislative information. That kind of gives a little detail. There's a WebEx on Wednesday I'm attending with Kathy Anderson from NDE to go more in detail with more specific runs. They're going to do runs for each individual school district on what the 25 legislation affects their funding. Other things that I've been working on is career check ed. We have to submit our estimate for the year for the levy process that'll be happening now this fall. The transportation contract you approved. And then Gretchen and I have been working on some stuff with community ed, how we can make some of the other snacks and things, CACFP to generate some more revenue. Looking also at some of the daycare issues and working with First Family Finance on that. And then Gretchen and I met with regard to food service. She has over a $300,000 fund balance, and right now we're allowed to have a 6-month reserve of expenditures, but after this next year we won't. So she's looking at how to spend down and what equipment she needs to purchase. This last year we bought a freezer at the elementary so that she can have not as many delivery, get the delivery charges and store the stuff in the freezer. So just constantly trying to find ways to keep the funding and generate more funding. We were conservative in our revenue calculation because it wasn't including some that we've heard are potentially coming in the fall for new students. And actually we got a couple calls the end of last week and just today on new families wanting to tour. So hoping that that'll change your revenue projection in this budget. So again, we'll look at that and revise it again once we get into the year. Anybody have questions?
No questions. All right. Thank you very much, Barb. Strategic plan update that's coming in August, the HVED project update, nothing at this juncture.
I can
Might
speak on that the board.
Okay.
reports, yeah.
Okay. Spencer will hit on it, board reports. Then the new business item, staff survey results.
Yeah, so this year was just a little bit different because we did break out the surveys into three pieces. So we had support staff, middle school, high school, and high school from my building. You know, I'm gonna be very honest. First glance, I was disappointed with some of the results. However, I did start comparing them to the ones from last year, and I do think that overall we moved in the right direction. I think that the bottom end per se on a lot of them either got smaller or was eliminated. We had more, I would say, in the middle than we did last year, or I should say the 23-24 school year. One of the nice things this year is we did get the results back a little bit earlier, and so I think I mentioned this at the last meeting. I do a checkout meeting with every one of my staff at the end of the school year, and so while it's anonymous, so I can't say, well, you said this or you said this, I can say the trend is showing this. Can you give me some more feedback on that and exactly what it is that you feel you're looking for, or you know what others may be looking for. You know, one of the things that makes it hard about it being anonymous is we obviously didn't get 100% participation. We should have had about 40, and I think we had 24. So that's one of the things that makes it a little bit more difficult. The other thing, because I've reflected on this a fair amount, I've talked to some different staff members, just kind of like getting their feeling on some things, and you know, obviously you have some data that's missing. But the two things that I really took away from this that were the communication and the appreciation, which I know we talked about last year. And so one of the things that I asked every one of my staff on checkout is, you know, I tried some new things with communication, and I did a weekly outlook, a no surprises email that went out every week that basically said, here's what we have this week that's going on, trying to, you know, get some of those things. Some really liked it, some didn't. Imagine that, right? Some had asked, hey, will you do that, but can it go out on the Friday before instead of coming out on Sunday nights? Okay, yep, that's something that's easy enough. It's just shifting my timetable around a little bit. And so that was one of the big things. The other thing that I try to rely on is the Google Calendar. And so like I try to put things in there ahead of time. But what I found is they're looking for more of the details earlier than you know, I'm saying, hey, this event, I can tell you September 18th is their CTE career fair this year. That's already in the calendar, it's been in there. But they want to know the details. When is my class going to be, you know, disrupted? What am I doing? What do I do during my prep? Things like that. So that was one of the big takeaways that I got in talking with my staff. And then the other thing that's going back to the appreciation, that was one of the things, again, that on first glance, it was kind of, you know, disheartening, I guess, but we did see improvement over last year. But then I also, this year, I just asked, what is it that I can do to make you feel more appreciated? Because I know we even talked at the last meeting, Mike said, me telling Mike good job is not going to necessarily motivate him. So what is it that's going to motivate you? And the thing that I heard over and over is, we want you in our classrooms. We want you to sit down for 15 minutes and watch what it is that I'm doing every day, because I'm going to feel appreciated that you're taking the time. You know, right now I do walkthroughs, not as much as I would like, but a lot of times I'm in there 30 seconds, maybe a minute, maybe two, and I make the rounds a lot faster. So just slowing down and trying to make sure that I'm taking the time to do that, and then being able to have those reflection conversations. So while I'm still maybe going to focus on the same goals that I did last year, I think they're two very, very important ones, and I want to make sure that that we get them where I want them to be. So, like I said, I've talked to a number of teachers, talked to some paras, and just really trying to dig into exactly what it is, because there's so many things on these surveys, especially in the responses, I'd love to ask, like, can you explain this to me? Can you tell me what this means? Like, that's one of the things that we can't do.
Do you think the idea that it is anonymous is bad?
I don't necessarily think it's bad, because I think that you're going to get more honest feedback.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel like I was able to say, I don't know what, John, I don't know what you wrote on the survey, but this is what the trends that I'm seeing just looking at it. Can you help me understand? Even if you don't feel that way, probably heard how somebody else feels. Can you help me understand that? And so that was one of the benefits of doing it that way. Because, you know, and I tell people, like, I want you to be honest with me, because if you tell me what I want to hear, nothing's going to change and nothing's going to get better. So some of the results that I found. Cool.
Do you got anything, John?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk as much or as little about the survey.
I mean, if you guys could email it, that would be great. Like, just send it.
We did.
Oh, you did email us?
John did.
Sorry.
I sent it to just the school board.
Okay,
So,
and this is the second year we've done it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we can put like a bar or a line chart together, seeing hopefully it's trending up, right? That's all we're looking for.
Yeah, and one of the things, and I don't want to get nitpicky, and I don't want to take a whole bunch of people's time. This was just even a conversation that I had today. It's how frequently do you feel recognized or appreciated in your contributions? Who is the target of that? Are we talking about from students? Are we talking about from other coworkers? Are we talking about administration? Are we talking about the school board? Are we talking about the community? So what exactly, you know, it's just something that, again, not to nitpick it apart, but that can be looked at differently, I think, by different people.
That could probably be a clarified question in the next couple of surveys. Let's say, do you feel appreciated by administration? If no, why not? Or whatever. Or what would make you, what would you like to see to feel more appreciated? Just kind of change. Get more information from you.
And the only downside is anytime you change it, then your data's gonna, you gotta put a little squiggly line that says, well, but we changed this question, so now what we did before. But that was just one,
But that would be important to know too, because I mean, maybe it isn't you, maybe it's, well, my husband does appreciate the work I do at school. We can't really help with that, but we can help put like a teacher appreciation week or something together, you know, or, you know, just anything for public help, you know.
so,
Alright,
Yeah, I mean, I guess I might as well. I was pretty happy overall with the results. Picked out a great deal of small things to build on, some very specific things to implement next year and tweak a little bit. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I was really happy with it. I just think of it as something to make sure that I build on rather than become complacent with. There are, when you're doing surveys like this, you have to look at the general trend, of course, but the general positive trend, I'm trying to ignore that and find out the small things that can be improved on, and there's certainly some. But yeah, for the purpose of presenting tonight, I mean, suggestions, communication between our intervention team and our gen ed teachers is certainly something that we've been working on to improve on all year, but already have plans in place to make it even better for next year. Yeah, I don't know. I was happy with it, but I'm just very leery of the honeymoon phase of a new principal and making sure that we continue to get better and not complacent. So.
cool. Anybody got questions? Alright, thanks, guys. Moving on, board member reports. This is Lee, Spencer.
Yeah, I got one. Yeah, and I'm gonna talk about age debt here a little bit, but I wanna pass this out. Last week I was in Stillwater, Oklahoma, at our National Wrestling Hall of Fame meetings, and we had values. We must have spent a couple hours on it, but then we had other stuff to do too. But if you guys want a copy, my favorite thing on there is our values. We had our value statement, blah, blah, blah. Values are integrity, excellence, collaboration, and service. Integrity includes honor, accountability, trust, responsibility, transparency, and stewardship, and then morality, virtue, honesty, character, excellence, distinction, virtue, merit, value. If you want one, fine. But I don't see that with our HVET director, and I'm going to get into that right now here and go over some of the stuff that, and you'll maybe understand why I get frustrated. Of course, then last week, I'm still in Stillwater. Actually, I ended up in their emergency room here. Emergency room there with acute bronchitis, they call it. I was borderline walking pneumonia. But I got back. He wanted me to come back on Wednesday night for a meeting. I think Mike was invited, Craig was invited with our superintendent's cabinet. And hey, if I got it, teach me an attitude. Hey, if I got an attitude, you bet I got an attitude when it comes to values, honesty, integrity, and all that other stuff. But I caught her in another fib on that call as well. But here's what I'm going to go over with you, and I've got copies if you need it. The roof is shot up there. And of course, I talked to John Alexander, who sold it, and his dad, Mike, and I've known, well, Mike was my college roommate. They're probably two of the best realtors in Winona, Minnesota. But anyway, he told me that roof had been leaking for 30 years. So she tells me, I wish he'd have told me that 3 years ago when they got it. Well, any general manager that has a business sense would have had enough common sense to have somebody check that roof out. That's not the only thing that's issues up there too. They got mold in the walls. And hey, sorry, but it's not going to be ready in December. Now she's talking target date of January 6th. We'll see. And then, the thing that kind of bothers me, and maybe I'm too value oriented, but the liquor store, and that's fine because it's on the outside of the building and the kids can't get in there. But there are two restaurants probably where they serve alcohol or drinks, and I mean that might be handled well too. So maybe that's not a complaint. But where I get worked up is I get tired of good old boys clubs. But worse yet, I get tired of nepotism and family hirings. 3 of Deb's families are in the payroll. She obviously gets the big salary. Her husband was recently hired as a full-time teacher after subbing. And, anyway, they run a good one off. Amy Lawson was pretty good there. So, you know, that's kind of personal game, you know, and stuff. So her nephew Jeff is the I-Tech director, and then Deb's the manager. You've got three of them. And then, of course, the special ed director that was recently hired for that position, although she was in 2023 is when she got hired, but recently she demoted the gal, Tracy Lynn, that's been there for forever in that position, and has more special education licenses than the person they gave it. And of course, Craig sits on the superintendent's council up there. Well, guess who the special ed director is up there? That's Jen Erke. She got moved up to the top. And you want the honest truth? $40,000 more than what Tracy was getting. So I think that mismanagement could turn around and bite them sometime. Because if you have mismanagement in a place, doesn't matter what the contracts say, you belly it up, you know. But anyway, like I say, wanted me to come up there. No way am I coming back from Stillwater, Oklahoma after I walked out of the emergency room a couple days earlier, you know. So, and otherwise, then too, I don't know, I didn't see a figure on it, but they're in the subdivision 4 in the tech contact for things, you know, it's supposed to be between 25,000 and 175,000. But I don't think, you know, I mean, on that, I don't know if you went over that or not, but I do know you're supposed to get 2 or more quotes for that service. That's Deb's nephew. Okay, so, you know, and I don't know, I'm not gonna accuse her of breaking the rules for personal gain for his or her family. So anyway, so there needs to be a conversation on a survey of staff and exit interviews of those having to be forced to leave and stuff, and or why they got demoted. And that hasn't been told to that person that got moved back to a director, and that too, or an interventionalist is what she is today. That hasn't been told yet. Oh yeah, she just loves it. She's really excited in that. I caught her in another one. One thing is on a lie, if you tell one, you gotta tell 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to get out of it. And I'm sorry I'm getting worked up, but I mean, I've had it up to here. Actually, I asked Mike to go up next meeting with me and see what they're doing up there. So, you know, and give you a little song and dance. And here's another thing that really, well, they should have conversation or survey with those when they leave or forced to be leaving. I said that. But also, they can't fill the positions that they promised the superintendents when this thing was passed. They've only got one interventionalist. They were supposed to get every interventionalist for every school in the district. I don't know how they could get that many, but, you know, because I asked her at the last meeting, they've only got one hire of the whole thing. So, okay, so, you know, and they never ever did tell the one that got demoted that on a reduction and that too. But like I say, that's pretty much it. You got any more questions, you can ask me. Sorry for getting excited, but that's the values my dad grew me up on was obviously honesty, loyalty, and integrity above reproach. That's the same thing the college wrestling coaches wrote for the best recommendation I got in my life. Sorry to get emotional, but I want to tell the truth here so you know what's going on. Is there any other questions?
So the roof, I don't remember when we voted on that, being told that the roof was leaking.
No, because she told me point blank, I wish John would have told me that 3 years ago. Well, if you're gonna be the business manager, fixing to buy that big a building, don't you think you'd hire somebody to look at the roof? I mean, that's just my thoughts, I don't know.
Is that a disclosure thing?
But
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, it seems to me like mold in the walls.
Mold would be.
That's it, you can test for that. Okay, that's something that's just due diligence, you test for mold. It might not even be disclosure, it's like the person purchasing should do the due diligence and test for mold in the wall.
I mean, everyone knows it's an old building, so that would be the very first thing that would come to mind.
Seems to me like HVAC didn't do due diligence. I don't know if the seller didn't divulge things either, but, I'm going up on the 25th with Spencer. I would encourage anybody who has time to go up there with me to do it. But maybe we need to revisit that. I don't know.
I don't, it's real frustrating, I do know that. apologize to Lee, if Tim Gunn was here, I apologize, and I apologize to you the other night, Mike. Had I known and been able to sort through it, I should have known by then how she operated, I would have been the fourth vote to turn that thing down. Because I think we could have did better elsewhere, you know, or at least we'd had more honesty and integrity, you know, instead of a good old boys club, you know, and that.
Yeah, I mean, the building right next door to the high school,
Yeah.
$1.5 million. You know, could do 6 schools in there, and the reason they gave that building wasn't sufficient, they gave like 9 reasons, and it was like, the doorknobs aren't up to specs, and I'm like, I could fix that, I could run to Menards and fix that tonight. And it was just silly.
Was that the Able building?
The Able building.
Yeah, that Lee was telling us about.
Yeah, the Able building, and they clearly wanted that Winona facility,
Oh, yeah.
and they were unwilling to hear anything else, and they clearly didn't do their due diligence if there's mold in the walls and if nobody knew that the roof was leaking. As far as the nepotism stuff, you know, I know that, that's tough to kind of iron out, but you're
Yeah.
saying that the director, there was one director who was demoted and they hired a different director for
Right.
$40,000
Yeah,
more?
that was Mr. Lee's wife. And I don't want to tell you what she's getting, and you could look it up, but I couldn't tell you.
Well, but they got rid of one director, hired a new one for
Yeah, and they moved her
$40,000.
down to being an interventionalist, or they kept her on, but see, they cut from 4 to 3. And Tracy was the one that got cut. And then, of course, with her position, and she went back, she did accept the teaching position. I believe she's an interventionalist. I always thought she was pretty good, but then Craig's wife moved up to the director of the special ed there, and she was the director of special ed at Rochester too, so I'm sure. But the reason she gave me for hiring her was she's got such a wide variety of stuff, you know. But then, like I say, she come back in February, and she said that basically that Tracy was happy and really excited in the position she was doing. But I do know for a fact Tracy's applied for 2 jobs, already turned one down because it was too far, you know. But, like I say, she's a good person. I guess I hate to see good people. Well, I don't want to use the CRAP word or that, but.
I've talked to a couple different people on that board, like the guy from the Crescent, Hagel, a couple times. Have they ever expressed any concern about any of this stuff?
Well, Hagel's wife is on the board too. Hagel's wife got hired as a teacher at the meeting. And then, you know, it didn't dawn on me until they went home that night. I said, God, his wife just got hired. You know, and she taught for 35 years. I think she's a pretty good teacher, maybe 40, you know, and that from Bilberry. And I said, that's nepotism. That's conflict of interest. So at the next meeting, I brought that up. And when I said conflict of interest, and I'm sitting here, Hagel's sitting there, or actually it's over there where Lee was. He turned around, he wouldn't even look at me. He would not even look at me. And I mean, if I'd had a baseball, I probably would have been put in the Winona County Jail that night because I threw it right at his head and put some common sense in. No, I wouldn't have did that, but it was frustrating because he wouldn't even look me in the eye.
Dude, I guess what I was specifically saying is, are they bringing up concerns like the roof and the mold? Are they like, what the heck?
They haven't brought it up yet, but that, you know, I did miss that April meeting because my heart and soul is when I'm giving scholarships away, and I had to be down at High that night, you know. So, and I wasn't there, so I don't know what got brought up, but no, I'm gonna have to have an attitude operation.
It just seems to me like from my conversations with them, they're all like, you'll say, well, what about the roof and the mold? I mean, why wasn't that brought up before we did that joint fires? And they're kind of like, what? Kind of shrug their shoulders or kind of make excuses. And it's like, well, you guys, what's going on? I don't know. I find the whole thing weird too. So that's why I'm going up on it.
Look good. I need the support because I can only take 1 hour at a time, you know. I shouldn't say that, but I just it gets frustrating.
When was the first initial date you were supposed to be in? Wasn't it
2 years,
last
I
year?
thought it was 2 Decembers ago, wasn't it? 1 December ago? 2 Decembers ago? It's over, it's gonna be over by 2 years.
Close to 2, yeah, at least, yeah. And we don't know if they'll be in there January 6th or not.
If you're taking care of a roof and mold and doubt.
I don't know if they are or not, I don't think they are, but. you
I don't know, it's just, the thing I brought up to Pagel was, if this happened in the private sector, you'd never get away with it. But, I mean, the leader of that project would no longer be around. It just wouldn't happen. Yet, when it's the public sector, for some reason, when the taxpayers are on the hook, everything gets swept under the rug because they just know the money train's gonna keep on rolling. And it doesn't work like that in the private sector. I'm like, how can you continue on this with the same leadership that you started it? And, you know, gives you the,
The only thing that I think that would ever save her, and I'll give Barb a lot of credit here, the best business managers that I've ever been around, obviously, their first name starts with B, Barb Meyer and Brad Carlton. Brad's the one up there, and I know that one meeting, he wouldn't even talk, and that's the first time he's never went over stuff. But Brad's pretty sharp, because a lot of this construction and stuff that didn't get done, and I'll give him credit, Brad come out and said, because it's not been done, they get $450,000 in interest before they have to, you know, pay for what they're gonna do with that construction. So that one good thing. I mean, like they say, well, you gotta say at least one good thing about him after you hammered on him about 6 or 7 bad things, you know, so, and that, but thanks, Mark, for the great job.
well, okay.
Karen too, so.
We'll learn more on the 25th, I guess. You got anything, Derek? I don't have anything either. So in that case, does anybody got anything? Last words? Nope, okay. In that case, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Derek seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. It is 6:19.